Welcome back, everybody. Today, as you probably guessed from the intro and the title of the video, we are going over this rifle right here, finally here on the channel. So this is the WWSD 2020 rifle. So what does that mean? Well, Carl and Ian over at InRange basically took a look at the Stoner tapes, which is a series of interviews that Eugene Stoner, who invented the AR-15, and 4M16 family of rifles. He did a series of interviews over on the Smithsonian website, and they're actually on my B channel as well if you guys want to watch them, discussing the development of the AR-15 platform, some of the things that different customers requested, and therefore some of the design changes that have kind of gone through the evolution of the rifle into what we see in 2020, which, according to Ian and Carl, basically their take is this is what Eugene Stoner would come up with if he was designing the rifle, with modern manufacturing processes and basically just his mindset of what he envisioned the rifle to be. A lightweight, handy, very easy to use, low recoil and carbine. And that kind of is what we have here. So the folks over at InRange, again, and Forgotten Weapons, got together with the folks at KE Arms, Brownells, and a few other companies and put together the carbine that you see right here that comes in just under 5 pounds with no optic and no magazine. So it is definitely a lightweight package, but what is it? Is it good? How does it run? All of those sorts of things. Let's get into it. Before we go tip to butt on this rifle, I do want to go over the accuracy of it, because obviously a lightweight rifle, a lot of people think that you might not be able to get the best groups out of it. But before we step out to the range to test that accuracy, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that is the Sonoran Desert Institute. For folks that don't know, they are an online, fully accredited education system where you can get a couple different degrees, and they offer folks a pathway into the firearms industries, whether that be gunsmithing, owning a gun store, whatever the case may be, whatever path you want to take. I definitely recommend checking out SDI. Now, before we head out to the range, I thought I had a target cam on. We didn't. So we're just going to kind of skip through the shooting procedures, but let you guys see the extraction, ejection patterns, those sorts of things. Then check out the target, then come back here and walk through it. Now we're going to see what kind of accuracy we can get out of this little rig here. You guys have probably seen we've been shooting it suppressed, but since it's a lightweight profile barrel, I figured we wouldn't run the accuracy like that with the can on there, because cans can impact accuracy, particularly on lightweight barrels. So we just had the OSS flash hider out there. Primary arms, PLX, new compact 1:8. It's plenty of glass for this, and trust me, it's a very, very nice scope. You guys will see that whenever the review comes around. Other than that, it's factory M193 in the gun. Then we got a couple loads that should group a little better, but you never know. So I do these tests, and the target is downrange at 100 yards. And Caldwell rest. And I think that's it. That is nice glass, folks. Very nice. All right, next up we have a Federal 69 grainer. So I've said it a million times on the channel, Federal is not a sponsor of the channel. Wish they were, just kidding. But we have their 69 grain Sierra Match King bullet loaded into their 223 chambering in gold metal match. Stuff's very consistently accuracy. I could be jinxing myself. I doubt it. So we'll see how this barrel likes it. Yeah, I didn't jinx myself. It's a good group. All right, next up, guys, 55 grain. This is Federal as well. It's loaded with the Barnes TSX bullet. So it's an all copper projectile. A lot of folks like these for hunting. I think I have a gel test of this up on the B channel, but it's nasty stuff. Certainly want to take one to the chest. So we'll see how she likes it. Looks pretty good too. Let's go check them out. Y'all have already seen the groups up close and personal, but we had that 193 up first. Obviously, I did not expect that to group all that well, and it didn't. So it's just ball ammo. Expect 2 to 4 MOA out of it typically, and right here we're just at 3 inches on the dot. And we had our 69 grainer here, and definitely tightened it up. Center to center in that group, we are right at 1 3/8 inches. Then we had the 55 grainer, and we count them all center to center. We're at 1.75 inches. If you ignore that one, 4-shot group, we're right at 1 inch, but we count them all. So you can see there, obviously we're very close to an MOA group with different loadings, or if you worked up hand loads, fairly confident you could get an MOA group out of that gun, even with that pencil profile barrel. Typically when people review this rifle, at least from what I've seen over the years anyway, they focus on the lower receiver, which we will definitely get to, but we're going to start out here at the tip and work our way back like we typically do. So out there on the end, we do have an A2 Birdcage flash hider. As I've said here a million times on the channel, it is one of the best all-around muzzle devices out there on the planet. It does a very good job at hiding flash and also has a little bit of compensation with that solid piece on the bottom, so that way it doesn't kick up dirt and dust and things like that when you're firing from the prone. I know when looking at this rifle, one thing they looked at was putting in a titanium version of the A2, but anybody who's ever fired a titanium muzzle device will know that titanium itself, when the bullet goes through it, sparks. So for a flash hider, that's not the best thing in the world. So they had to add a little bit of weight with the traditional steel A2 versus a titanium, but I think it was the right call because obviously a good flash hider is what you're looking for on a lightweight, handy, compact fighting rifle. So continuing on back to the barrel itself, it is the Faxon Firearms pencil profile 16-inch 1 1/8 twist mid-length barrel. It is a 4150 rather CMB nitrided steel, and obviously the contour is fantastic. I actually have a full review on that barrel. Continuing on back to the gas block, it has a .625 gas journal and it has Faxon's lightweight gas block on there. They did drill in there and dimple that into the barrel itself before putting into the set screws with high temp thread lockers, so very durable in that regard. Additionally, we have this carbon fiber rail here, so there's some pros and cons to it for sure. First off, it is super lightweight. That is definitely one of the biggest pros to it. Another one is that it does an awesome job at dealing with heat. It does not get hot. That alone is a huge plus for it. Obviously, we have the M-LOK slots here on the top, and then we have them all the way around as well, not just the 3, 6, and 9, but also the intermediate positions. Now back here towards the receiver, it has the aluminum piece on the end, and then back here at the receiver as well, it has the anti-rotational devices on there with the upper receiver, so that way it can't twist on you, and then it clamps down here at the bottom as well. Again, I have a full review of this handguard as well that I did probably 4 or 5 years ago. It is a super solid handguard without question. Nothing moves on it. It's rock solid, and the fact that it weighs almost nothing is really cool. The downside of it is that if you want to use a front sight post with it, say like a traditional Magpul Embus 2 or something like that, you have to get a slim, not a standard 1913 rail insert, but the slim one. Several companies make them out there. It's not a huge deal, but just know that if you want to co-witness with like a iron sight on the rear, you need a slim 1913 insert for your M-LOK handguard. After that, you're good to go. Obviously, we've been running a vertical foregrip on ours because for me, again, that just makes a rifle that is already super handy even handier. And we have had our 300 series Surefire over there on the left hand side with a Arisaka lightweight mount, again just for a super small compact package that can kind of do anything. It just made sense for me to set it up in that way, at least in my opinion. Continuing rearward here on the upper receiver, it is T-marked and it is the KE Arms upper receiver. Interestingly, over here on the right side, you can see that they actually machined out the forward assist and then put a little insert in there as well. It's a perfectly functional thing. Now, again, according to Eugene Stoner, if you actually listen to what he said in interviews multiple times, he wasn't a big fan of the forward assist. Now, I personally am. We can have that debate down below in the comments section, but according to what would Stoner do, that's absolutely the right call, is to not have a forward assist on there. Of course, we still have our shell deflector, so that way if you're a lefty or anything like that, you're not going to have shells coming back in your face, or if you're just firing off shoulder as a right-handed shooter. Other than that, though, it is pretty standard upper receiver forged 7075 T6. It does have M4 feed ramps in there that do align with that Faxon barrel. Now, taking it apart is a little bit unique, but before we do that, I wanted to show you a couple other cool features of the KE Arms lower. First off, hugely flared magwell, which I do like. I'm a big fan of that. Anybody who's watched the channel here for a while knows that. There's no reason to not flare a magwell, in my opinion. Only good things happen, nothing bad. And then we do have our ambidextrous magazine release as well as bolt release. So on this particular one here, we can pull back on our charging handle, push up there and lock our bolt to the rear and just push down on it to send the bolt home. And we do have the KE Arms ambidextrous magazine release there on the side. So you can work it from either way, however you want to do it. Now, one thing about the lower receiver is that the pins are designed to go through one way and they are not captive. So you'll see these little detents here on them, and to push through can be a little bit difficult, and that's a good thing because especially for non-captive pins, you don't just want them flying everywhere. I would imagine, I do not know this for sure, that is a byproduct of being a polymer lower receiver and just one of the difficulties of retaining it. Again, though, I do not know that for sure, just guessing it. And then with the forward one, we just take a bullet tip because it is a little bit recessed in there and push it right on out. Now they're snug. That's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is a little bit on the snug side. Now we're going to take our lower receiver off. We will come back to that here in just a second. Remove our bolt carrier group as well as our charging handle and set the upper receiver aside because we've covered everything on that one. This is a Break Arms charging handle. It is ambidextrous, and it does have a gas busting ridge here on the rear. I have several rifles with these charging handles on there, and I've had zero issues with them to date. Basically, it's in line with what the folks who put this rifle together were going for conceptually. It's not overly large, it's not overly heavy, but it does add increased functionality to the rifle over what something you would get that is mil spec, if you will. Now, one of the things that I think was one of the smarter decisions with this project is this bolt carrier group. So this is the Young Manufacturing bolt carrier group with the HMB bolt. So I think a lot of people who are looking to put together a rifle along the lines of a lightweight handy gun would be tempted to cut weight on the bolt carrier group. Now, with a lightweight carrier or something like that, I think that's the wrong answer if you're looking for one that is reliable. Now, I'm not saying a lightweight bolt carrier group can't be reliable, but I'm saying in the extreme conditions that you can expect a rifle to operate in, I personally would rather have a standard bolt carrier group. And I think Eugene Stoner would as well. If you look at basically what was happening when they were designing the Colt LMG, he said that he wanted the thing to be as heavy as possible. And I think the same would be true with any of the AR series that he was going for. And at the time of that interview, folks had just started tinkering around with lightening the bolt carrier for like competition use, and he thought that was comical and literally laughed at it during the interviews. Again, you guys can check him out if you haven't seen it, but I watched all of them, and he definitely does think that is a stupid idea. Our firing pin is normal, nothing fancy there. Cam pin on these, I've seen both. This one here is chrome. Sometimes these are nitrided. I would imagine that just has to do with availability, but the chrome bolt carrier and bolt itself is, in my opinion, still one of the, if not the best finishes out there on the bolt carrier group, period, for reliability. If you look at the early Stoner designs, they all had a full chrome bolt, just like our bolt and bolt carrier, just like this one. However, due to contract disputes, basically it came down to a lot of the M16 variants anyway, not so much the AR-10s, but a lot of the M16 variants. They basically went with the chrome where it just needed to be, which was inside the carrier itself as well as inside the gas key. Obviously the history of that and issues in Vietnam, that's a video for another day, but anybody who's familiar with it will know that. And Eugene Stoner, to his credit, said that he preferred to have the full thing chromed. I agree with that. There are other very good finishes today in 2022 for bolt carrier groups, but I think chrome is as good as any of them, if not better than most, still to this day. Now, this bolt carrier group does not have staked gas keys. That's something that Young Manufacturing says they shouldn't do. They have a dedicated page on their website as to why they do that, and I have never heard of a Young bolt carrier group ever coming loose or anything like that. So if that concerns you, cool. But again, I've never seen an issue with it. I don't have a problem with it. And of course, the carrier itself also has these cuts in it that wouldn't be there on a standard bolt carrier group. It also doesn't have the forward assist serrations in there as well. And what these cuts do is it just adds for a little bit more room for grease, dirt, debris, etc. to be present, and the bolts still go fully into battery under adverse conditions. The bolt itself is cool. So basically what you'll see, looking at a lot of bolts out there, if you look at when they fail, there's two places they fail. It's right here shearing on the lugs, as well as right here where our cam pin goes through. Now on this particular one, because it has an HMB bolt, That is the advanced bolt where it does not go all the way through, basically making that area much, much stronger than it would traditionally be if the cam pin went all the way through. So there's only one way it can go, which is a good thing. Now, the material this is made out of, from everything I've seen online, is 9310 steel. And basically, if you ask a lot of people out there, if properly heat treated, 9310 steel is about 7% stronger than 158 Carpenter steel. So in terms of an improvement in designs that are available today that just weren't out there back when the AR was being developed, I'd say it's right in line with that. Now it's time to get into this little receiver. I will tell you, in the past, if you asked me 4 or 5 years ago, should you ever use a polymer lower receiver on an AR-15, I would generally say no, if you can avoid it. That said, the folks at KE Arms, I watched the development of this go on for, I guess, the last 4 years. They've been very open about it, the progress of it, some of the issues they had, how they fixed those issues. And if you're interested, definitely check them out on YouTube. But I feel very confident in this particular rifle, in this particular lower, and that it would last a very, very long time despite being polymer and not being aluminum. Now, that said, one thing you're going to notice when you pick this up for sure is this guy. This is the JP Silent Captured Spring. So it should be pointed out first that this does have an A1 length buttstock on it built into the lower receiver. Most folks are going to find that very comfortable. If you're really short, like say below, you guys are going to get offended, but if you're short, say like below 5'6", 5'7", it may not be the most comfortable for you. I'm 6 feet tall. It's very comfortable for me. And I would imagine on the higher end of that spectrum, like if you're Hickok 45, it might be a little bit short for you. But this does have the lightweight components in there. So if you guys have noticed throughout the firing of the gun throughout this video, we're getting ejection at say like the 1 to 2 o'clock position, and that's because we're using full power Remington ammo, and they obviously had to gas the gun, as most commercial guns do, for, you know, wolf or Tula on a very cold day. We've been using this when it's pretty much been hot, and again, we've had full power Remington ammo going through it. So you can change these weights out though if you wanted to tune it for what you're using. I understand why they went with the lightweight, because being overgassed, it will run just fine. Just know that going forward. Some folks like it because it doesn't create the boing sound, which doesn't bother me at all. The thing I actually like about it is the fact that it eliminates the need for the detent here. You don't need it at all with this system, and I have broken 2 of those over the years on my rifles, and I've heard folks on the internet say that they only break if your gun's out of spec. Well, if that's true, why did the HK416 actually change the way it interfaces? Because, of course, constant breakages that were normal, under normal use as the round count goes up. So they did away with that with the silent capture spring design. You don't need it at all. It's not an inexpensive part, but it is one that has been highly proven. If you look around the internet, a lot of folks really do like it. So looking at the lower receiver, what did they do? Well, basically this lower receiver, if you watch on their YouTube channel, it's 2 pieces that are kind of like fused together. And you guys can see the lines here where they bring it all together and sand it down. That has changed somewhat over the years. But at the rear here, we do have a trap door, so you can store stuff in there if you want to. Additionally, we have our traditional sling mount here at the rear, and then you can put a QD sling mounting point there in there if you want to. You don't have to. If you want to, though, you can. And the safety that it comes with from the factory is a 45-degree safety. Ambidextrous, of course, as well. And you can switch out the arms to either side. So whichever one you prefer, it has 2 different arms on there. I left it as it's come from the factory. Additionally, if you prefer a 90-degree throw, you can switch it to a 90-degree throw as well. Trigger on there is the KE Arms single stage trigger. It's very nice, and it has a really cool feature about it, but just in terms of the actual break itself, let's talk about that. A little bit of uptake, not much, single stage, and then the reset. Very tactile, very audible. It's a great trigger. I've had 0 issues with it. And one thing I think that's cool with this trigger versus most AR triggers that you can't do is that right now the rifle is on fire and the gun has fired. At this point, you can put it on safe. With most AR-15 triggers, you cannot do that. That can be beneficial for safety, whether you're doing malfunction drills or a number of other things out there. It is possible to do so. Now, folks have asked, is it full auto pocket cut? Kind of. And kind of not. So you guys can see that line that goes down in there. where your sear would be. Now it's polymer, guys. If you really wanted to put a sear in there, you could. That said, it is not what I would recommend if you're going to create a full auto host. It just isn't. It's not what it's meant to do. That said, I've seen these things get beat pretty darn hard. If you guys have seen the recoil test of this, the recoil magazine test, they beat the crap out of this lower, smashing it up against trees, poles, running it over, all types of things. It is plenty durable. I have no issues with that at all. And the part that traditionally fails on a polymer lower, for folks who haven't watched, is basically here where it meets up with your buffer tube, where you're mating the two together. Obviously, it's very widely reinforced in that area, and it is a single piece rather than two different pieces meeting together with aluminum pushing into your polymer. You don't have that same issue that you have with your traditional polymer lowers. And again, strength wise, I think it'll do just fine. Obviously, our fencing here is very thick up towards the top, which is good because that's where your trigger components are. That's where the stress is. And we have good fencing all the way around the magazine release, as well as our bolt catch there. And you guys can see how that works. It's a very, very simple design, but an effective one for sure. I've got a few other points to discuss here before we close the video out. So first and foremost, this one was provided to me, to the channel here to do the review by Brownells. Brownells is the exclusive retailer for this rifle. So thank you to Brownells for sending it out. In terms of reliability, this rifle has had zero malfunctions of any kind with anything we've put through it, any magazine combination. Again, the majority of the ammo has been Remington, but there has been some 223 Red Army standard that we ran through it. It ran it just fine, suppressed, unsuppressed. It didn't care. And of course, the silencer that we were using when you guys have seen it being fired silenced is a OSS or Huxworks 7.62 can. So in terms of back pressure, that's not been an issue at all. I know the folks over at KE Arms say that some of the earlier Gen 2 PMags can have the potential for not locking the bolt to the rear. I used some Gen 2 PMags. I had zero issues at all with functionality of this rifle, and this rifle right now has just over 2,000 rounds through it. Typically in 2022, we're not putting that many rounds through rifles that we bring here to the channel for review, but I just really like this gun and enjoy shooting it tremendously. Set up in the way that it is right now, it's one of the better do everything type of rifle that I have in my inventory. Obviously you could purpose build one a little bit different to what you want, your specific needs, desires, etc. But for what they set out for, an all around, you know, do everything handy rifle, it's fantastic. Really, they just knocked it out of the box here with this one. It balances so well. I mean, even with the magazine and scope in there, it would be super easy to shoot this rifle one-handed. You take that out, it gets even easier. You put like a small red dot on there versus this primary arms lightweight 1-8 on there, it gets even easier. You guys see the point. It is just super fun to shoot. It's handy, and again, it's a super high quality product in my opinion. In terms of price point on this one right now, as of when I'm filming this, it's coming in for around $1,500, so it's not super cheap. You know, that's putting it in the territory of some of the best defensive ARs out there, the BCMs, Daniel Defenses, and others that could be a little bit more expensive, and putting it right in that price point competitively. Do I think it's worth it? I mean, ultimately, worth is always up to you guys. I like to present the information and let you guys decide, but I would say that in terms of trusting it or using it for an all-around gun, I have zero issues with that. I have zero issues, you know, using it as a home defense gun, zero issues using it for a hunting gun, a lightweight gun to take through the bush. Really, anything you could want to use a rifle for outside of a bench rest precision roll, I think this rifle will do it just fine and do it as well as just about anything out there on the market. So with that, I suppose we'll close the video out. I'm losing my voice because I've been sick lately, and we're also losing some light. If you guys have any questions, you can post those down below in the comment section. As always, you can post them down below at my various social media sites as well if you're following me over there. Additionally, if you guys like this video, if you've subscribed and you haven't, please do so. But if you've done that and you're not seeing 2 to 4 videos a week here on the channel, you can sign up for my email list at the website here on your screen. Additionally, if you have done that, that email only goes out once a month most, so you're not going to have to worry about getting spam or anything like that. It just has all of the videos since the last email went out, so that way there's no social media giant censoring your eyes from my content. If this thing goes on sale, any of the components, anything like that go on sale, that will go out in my daily deals email. As the name indicates, it's daily deals. It's 6 or 7 of the best deals that we find around the internet. And if it's in that email on that particular day, it's the cheapest that I know of anywhere on the internet. So that way, whatever items are in there saves you guys some time. You don't have to do any looking, and hopefully saves you some money. And with that, we'll close the video out. Thanks as always. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.